Welcome to Dark Rule Stories, where every rule exists for a reason. Break it and face what should never be found.
When I first took the night watchman job at the old Hawthorne estate, I thought it would be the easiest work of my life. The mansion stood alone at the edge of the forest, miles away from the nearest town. During the day, it looked like nothing more than a forgotten piece of history-cracked walls, dusty windows, and gardens swallowed by wild weeds. But every night, when the sun disappeared behind the trees and darkness covered the estate, the place felt different, almost alive. My first evening there, the previous watchman, Mr. Carter, handed me a rusty set of keys and a small notebook. "Everything you need to know is written in here," he said with a serious expression. I laughed lightly. "What, a guide on how to survive a haunted house?" He didn't laugh back. His silence made the air around us feel colder. "Read the rules carefully," he whispered. "Especially the last one." Before I could ask anything else, he walked away without looking back. That night, sitting inside the small security room, I opened the notebook. The first few rules were ordinary. Lock all doors at 9 p.m. Check the cameras every hour. Never leave the main building after midnight. But the final rule was written in dark, shaky handwriting. Rule number 7. If you hear someone knocking on the front door between 2 a.m. and 15 a.m., do not open it. Do not speak to whoever is outside. Do not look through the window, no matter who they sound like. I stared at the words for a long time. It sounded ridiculous. Who would believe something like that? The clock continued ticking as rain started tapping against the windows. The empty halls of the mansion echoed with strange creaks and distant noises that I convinced myself were caused by the old wood hours past. 11 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m. Everything was normal. Then the power suddenly flickered. The lights went out for exactly 3 seconds. When they returned, every security camera screen showed nothing but static. My smile disappeared. I checked the clock, 1:58 a.m. 2 minutes before the time mentioned in the rule dot, somewhere beyond the front entrance. I heard footsteps slowly approaching the door. The footsteps stopped directly outside the front entrance. For a few seconds, the entire mansion became completely silent. No rain. No creaking floors. Not even the sound of the old clock hanging on the wall. It was as if the entire estate was holding its breath then. Knock, knock, K-N-O-C-K. 3 slow, deliberate knocks echoed through the empty hallway. My body froze. I looked at the notebook lying on the desk. The words of rule number 7 seemed to burn into my mind. Do not open it. Do not speak to whoever is outside. Do not look through the window. I forced myself to stay seated. It was probably a traveler lost in the storm. I told myself maybe someone needed help. The knocking came again. Louder this time. Knock, knock, knock. "Please," a soft voice called from the other side. "I know someone is in there." A cold sensation crawled up my spine. The voice belonged to a woman. She sounded terrified. "Open the door. They're following me." I grabbed the arms of my chair and closed my eyes. It was a trick. It had to be. The rule existed for a reason. Then the woman began crying, not fake crying. Real, painful sobs that filled the hallway with despair. "Please don't leave me outside," she whispered. "I'm scared." My heart started racing. What kind of person would ignore someone begging for their life? The clock moved to 2:08 a.m. The knocks became desperate. The woman screamed, "Help Emmy!" I stood up before I could stop myself. Every instinct told me to stay away, but my conscience was stronger than my fear. Slowly, I walked toward the front door. Each step across the wooden floor sounded louder than the last. When I reached the entrance, my hand hovered over the handle. The metal was ice cold. The woman stopped crying. A strange silence followed, then she spoke again, but this time, her voice was different, deeper, unnaturally calm. "You're finally here." Every muscle in my body locked. I remembered the second part of the rule. Do not speak to whoever is outside. But my fear had already made me forget the first warning. Without thinking, I whispered, "Who are you?" The moment those words left my mouth, the entire mansion shook violently. The lights exploded one by one down the hallway. And from the other side of the door, something smiled. I could hear it because no human smile should make a sound. The sound of that smile remained outside the door. A wet, stretching sound, like skin being pulled across something that was never meant to have a face. I stumbled backward, my heartbeat pounding so loudly I could barely hear my own thoughts. "What are you?" I whispered. Immediately, I realized my mistake. I had spoken to it again. The notebook had warned me. Do not speak to whoever is outside. The silence that followed was far worse than the knocking. Then the thing on the other side of the door began to laugh. Not loudly, not like a person. It was a low, broken laugh that sounded like dozens of voices trying to speak through one throat. "You have broken the rule," it said. The front door shook once, twice, 3 times. The old locks rattled violently as if something with impossible strength was testing them. I turned and ran toward the security room, hoping to lock myself inside until 15 a.m. That was the only thought in my mind. Survive 7 more minutes. As I reached the hallway, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The grandfather clock near the staircase had stopped. The hands were frozen at 2:08 am. No. I breathed. The time wasn't moving. The rule's time had not ended. A heavy thud echoed behind me. The front door had opened. Slowly, I turned around. At the end of the hallway stood a figure wrapped in darkness. It was tall enough to nearly touch the ceiling, its arms unnaturally long, and its face hidden beneath a shadow that moved like black smoke. But the worst part was its eyes. They looked exactly like mine. The creature tilted its head. Then, in my own voice, it said, "You should have left me outside." The hallway lights started flickering again. Each time the darkness swallowed the room, the creature moved closer. One blink. It was at the end of the hall. Another blink, halfway toward me. Another, only a few feet away. I could smell the damp earth and decay surrounding its body. My legs refused to move. The creature raised one long hand toward my face. Then suddenly a loud bell rang through the mansion. The grandfather clock, which had been frozen moments before, began to move again. 2:15 a.m., the creature stopped for the first time. It looked afraid. It stepped backward into the shadows and whispered one final sentence. "This is not over. You invited me inside." Then it disappeared. The mansion became silent once more. But as I stood there shaking, trying to convince myself the nightmare had ended, I noticed something waiting on my desk. The notebook. It had opened by itself. And beneath rule number 7, a new sentence had appeared in fresh, wet handwriting. Rule number 8. It lives with you now. My hands trembled as I stared at the new words in the notebook. Rule number 8. It lives with you now. The ink was still wet. A dark liquid slowly dripped from the page onto the wooden desk, forming small stains that looked disturbingly like fingerprints. "No," I whispered, stepping away. "No, this can't be happening." But deep inside, I already knew the truth. The creature had not entered the mansion by force. I had let it in. I had spoken to it. I had acknowledged it. And the rule I was supposed to follow had been broken. The rest of the night passed in complete silence. I stayed inside the security room, holding the notebook in one hand and a flashlight in the other. Every tiny sound, the creaking walls, the wind outside, even my own breathing made me jump. When morning finally arrived, I left the Hawthorne estate without saying a word to anyone. Mr. Carter was waiting outside the front gate, almost as if he had known exactly what had happened. His tired eyes looked at me, then at the notebook in my hand. "You opened the door, didn't you?" he asked. I couldn't answer. I didn't need to. He slowly closed his eyes. "I broke the same rule 30 years ago," he said quietly. My heart stopped. "You mean it followed you too?" He looked at me with a sadness I had never seen in another human being. "No." His lips began to shake. I was never able to leave it behind. Before I could ask what he meant, he walked away toward the forest and disappeared between the trees. I never saw him again. I quit my job that same day. I moved to another city, changed my phone number, and tried to erase every memory of Hawthorne Estate. For weeks, nothing happened. No strange sounds. No shadows. No nightmares. I started believing that maybe the horror was over. Maybe the creature had chosen to remain inside the mansion. Then, one night, exactly 1 month later, I woke up at 1:58 a.m. My bedroom was completely dark. My digital clock was dead. My phone had no signal. And from the corner of my room, I heard a familiar sound. A slow, wet breathing. I refused to look. I remembered the rules. I remembered the warnings. Then, from the darkness, my own voice whispered, "You learned the first rule too late." A cold hand rested on my shoulder, and a new voice spoke directly into my ear. "Now it's your turn to write the next one." The next morning, my neighbors found my house empty. The front door was still locked from the inside. The only thing left behind was an old notebook lying on the bedroom floor. The last page contained a fresh rule written in shaky handwriting. Rule number 9. Never trust the night watchman who tells you the rules, because the person giving you the warning might no longer be human.
If you enjoyed this story, subscribe. And if you carry a story you want told, email me at darkrulestories@gmail.com.